Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Birmingham. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are today, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. To all who are here this morning, welcome home.
If you would like to participate or comment on our service this morning, especially during the sharing of joys and sorrows, please use the chat feature in YouTube. We're trying to wrap up the stewardship campaign so that we can plan for next year. If you haven't already, please fill out the pledge form found at the link bit.ly/UUCB-pledge21. The caps in that are UUCBP, or you can just send in your form. Thank you so much for supporting our church. We have a host of new adult enrichment opportunities coming up, starting with a discussion on A Tale of Two Cities with Marilyn Carrada on March 4th. Also, there's a discussion of white fragility with Josh Flores on March 7th and March 14th. If you'd like to see our offerings or sign up for anything, please visit the link bit.ly/UUCB Spring. The caps in that are UUCBS. Both the links are case sensitive. I will put them in the chat on YouTube this morning, and Reverend Julie's probably going to beat me to it. Please check out this morning's announcements.
Hi, I'm Holly Hilton, and I am co-chair of the Small Group Committee.
Hi, I'm Lee Schaefer, and I'm also co-chair of Small Group Ministries.
And I'm here today to invite you to come to coffee hour today after church. We're going to be talking about what the Small Group Ministries is and how you can join. I hope you can make it.
Real briefly, Small Group Ministries are a group of 8 to 10 people who covenant to meet every couple, or at least twice a month, to share deeply about various topics and to listen with an open heart. It's a really neat experience to be part of a small group, and it helps you get to know your fellow church friends better and to make deeper connections in our church community and the broader world. We hope that you'll join us for more information on Sunday.
The prelude prepares us for worship. Our chalice reminds us that the fire within ourselves is the same as the fire that illuminates the universe. It's a reminder that all is connected, even though the space of the void is vast, and our experience here is but a blip on the cosmic timeline. This flame is our promise that in our smallness and our short time on this earth, we will live intently and deeply, with love for one another, with honesty and integrity, to be guided by rational thought and critical thinking, and with a sense of a shared responsibility. As the late astronomer Carl Sagan reminded us, this pale blue dot is the only home we've ever known.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in awe. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now, my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now, my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
Our church is supported by those who call our church home, and by those who support our church's efforts to change our world for the better. We share our cash plate every Sunday with organizations whose work reflects UU values to care for marginalized persons, advocate for real and systemic change, defend our environment, and promote justice and equity for all. This month's Share the Plate recipient is TAKE. TAKE stands for Transgender Advocates, Knowledgeable, Empowering, and is a resource for trans persons of color in Birmingham. TAKE connects clients to gender health services, medical care, housing needs, and a supportive community. During this time of social distancing and online worship, please know that our church expenses continue. Therefore, we very much appreciate you continuing to pay or your pledge or offer your donation by either mailing a check to the church office or by using PayPal or Venmo. Our Venmo account is at UUCBHAM. Please designate whether your offering is for UUCB or TAKE. Thank you for your generous support of our church and our Share the Plate recipient. May we give in love and hope.
As part of our Da Vincian spiritual practices each week, we've asked some of you to share your thoughts on various topics that relate to the topic of the upcoming week. This week's question was, if you could have a conversation with any historical figure, who would it be and why? I invite you to share your answer in the chat and also listen to these church friends as they share which historical figure they would like to converse with. Enjoy.
If I could talk to any historical figure, I would probably want to speak to Elizabeth Cady Stanton or any of the leaders of the women's suffrage movement, just to ask them how they persevered and to tell them that today I can vote and own property and have a checking account in my own name because of everything that they did. And I could also tell them that we have a female vice president, which would be pretty cool.
If I could have a conversation with any historical figure, it would definitely be George Carlin. And I would obviously want to talk education with him. I would want to know what aspect of education isn't talked about nearly enough, but definitely needs to be disrupted, like now.
Hi. If Jesus really existed and was indeed a historical figure, that's who I'd like to have a conversation with. I'd like to know how Jesus feels about his message of love, caring for the poor and the hungry, non-judgment, welcoming the immigrant. I'd really like to know what he thinks about how his followers have perverted that message into one of hatred and bigotry.
As we enter our meditative space this morning, I invite you to lift up Mitch Bolton and his partner Michael, who is in the ICU in Georgia following an illness. We ask that you would keep Mitch and Michael in your thoughts and prayers this week. Using the chat feature in YouTube, by speaking it aloud, or by hearing it on your heart, please give voice to what is on your heart today. Today's meditation was written by Reverend Lynn Cox. Spirit of life, ground of our being, root of unified mystery, growing into myriad branches of expression, bring us together now. Bring us close to the earth, ear to the whispering grass, quietly, attentively, waiting with slow breaths, listening for the very stones to cry out with their rocky stories of tectonic plates meeting and parting, meeting. Their mineral memories of Hadean days, molten rocks flowing and joining, their ancient legends of stars born out of the collapse of other stars. Help us to remember. Help us to piece together our oneness with matter, our oneness that matters. With one more deep breath, may we rise, star stuff walking and rolling across the surface of this impossible blue-green planet. May we join together to heal what is divided. May we find wholeness within, without, among, between. Eternal source, seed of the universe, help us to grow peace. So be it, blessed be, amen.
Good morning. Will the children please come forward? This morning, in honor of Black History Month, I'm going to be sharing with you 2 stories of amazing Black women who both made history this year. Now, the first one is our current Vice President, Kamala Harris. Now, once upon a time, there was a girl who attended civil rights marches before she was even born. Later, her parents, who were originally from India and Jamaica, took her to protest. They shouted chants while wide-eyed Kamala watched from her stroller. Eventually, Kamala outgrew her stroller, and she ventured onto the streets of Oakland, California, on her own. She knew she wanted to be someone who could help others when they were in trouble. Kamala went to Howard University in Washington, D.C., and followed in the footsteps of many famous Black lawyers who came before her, and she took an internship on Capitol Hill. Every day she walked by the Supreme Court building, and on it the words, "Equal justice under law," were etched into the stone, and Kamala thought about how she could make those words true for everybody. She followed her dreams and became a lawyer, and in the courtroom, she always asked tough questions, battled against fierce adversaries. In her words, Kamala demanded that people listen to her. She decided to run for office. She became the first ever female district attorney in the San Francisco Bay Area, beating out her boss. And then later she ran for Attorney General of the whole state of California, and she won. Then Kamala climbed even higher, and she was elected to the United States Senate. And in 2020, former Vice President Joe Biden chose her as his running mate when he ran for president. And the powerful pair won the election, and Kamala became the first woman and the first person of color to ever hold that office. And now, very exciting to watch her be sworn in as their very first woman and person of color vice president. And now, the next story I'm going to share with you is about a woman named Stacey Abrams, who made huge changes in the state of Georgia. And once upon a time, there was a girl named Stacey who loved hip hop, Star Trek, and climbing trees. She was one of 6 children, and her parents couldn't always afford electricity. Still, her family showed up for school, church, and volunteering at a soup kitchen. They believed there was always a way to help others. Stacey got the highest grades, and she was named valedictorian of her high school. Part of her prize was to visit with the governor. And he lived in a mansion with huge gates and a guard. And the guard said that Stacy didn't belong there. And she didn't understand why he said that, but she didn't care. She just knew that from that moment on, she wanted to be the person who opened those gates. She earned a law degree, she wrote novels, she started 2 small businesses, and she became a lawmaker in Georgia. She devoted herself to fighting poverty, making schools stronger, protecting women's rights, and helping military families. And in 2018, she ran for governor. She was the first Black woman to do this for a major political party. Now, she got more votes than any other Democrat in the state's history, but sadly she still lost because many people were not allowed to vote. But she didn't give up. She remembered that guard trying to block her way into the mansion. She channeled all of that frustration into inspiration, and over the next 2 years, she dedicated herself to making voting easier. She also registered 800,000 voters in Georgia because she believes that everyone's voice matters. And now those gates are open, and all of her hard work helped people who were not eligible to vote prior in Georgia to be able to vote. And if you are interested in more stories about amazing women, I have this book, Rebel Girls Lead. I do have some copies that you can borrow. If you would contact me, I'll be more than happy to lend them to you. And also in other news, we will be starting in person, RE, the first week of March. So be on the lookout for an email with the dates and the times. And I look forward to seeing you in the outdoor classroom. Thank you so much, and please join me in singing our song.
Each person is worthwhile, to be kind in all you do. 3, we help each other learn. 4, and search for what is true. 5, all people get a vote. 6, build a just and peaceful world. 7, we take care of the earth. That will bring us back to me and you too.
For the past 6 weeks, we have been on a journey through time and space to explore the world and values of Leonardo da Vinci, one of our earliest humanist ancestors. We studied these principles as defined by Michael Gelb and applied them to our spiritual practices and explored connections to ourselves, each other, and the world around us. The beauty of this pandemic sermon series is that if you missed a week, or all the weeks, you can still catch them on YouTube on your own. And we still have a few spiritual practices boxes at the church for the weekly interactive activities that you can do on your own. We hope that you will feel invited and welcome to do this on your own pace. Week 1, we focused on curiosita, the insatiably curious approach to life and unrelenting quest for continuous learning. Week 2, we focused on dimostrazione, a commitment to test knowledge through experience, persistence, and a willingness to learn from mistakes. Week 3, we focused on the refinement of our senses. Week 4, we embraced ambiguity, paradox, and uncertainty. Week 5, we discussed the balance of science and art and whole brain thinking. And last week, we discussed cultivating grace, poise, fitness, and ambidexterity through the many ways our bodies move. This week, we wrap up this series with a discussion of the Da Vincian principle, connessione, a recognition of and appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things and phenomena, otherwise known as systems thinking. Connessione certainly sounds like our seventh Unitarian Universalist principle, that we, the congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. We are a people. We are a people who loves nature. And so often we interpret our seventh principle as a focus on the beauty of nature and animals. Reverend Forrest Gilmore challenges us to go deeper in our thoughts about our seventh principle. He writes, "Our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, is a glorious statement. Yet we make a profound mistake when we limit it to merely an environmental idea. It is so much more. It is our response to the great dangers of both individualism and oppression. It is our solution to the seeming conflict between the individual and the group. Our seventh principle may be our Unitarian Universalist way of coming to fully embrace something greater than ourselves. The interdependent web, expressed as the spirit of life, the ground of all being, the oneness of all existence, the community forming power, the process of life, the creative force, even God, can help us develop that social understanding of ourselves that we and our culture so desperately need. It is a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives. It is a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives, no matter which of those terms mentioned above resonates with you. Leonardo's principle of connessione is that same idea, a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives, an all-encompassing value of the importance of finding connections between seemingly unrelated moments or beings, of finding order out of chaos. One of Leonardo's subjects of study was human anatomy, which he called Cosmographica del Minor Mundo, translated as a cosmography of the microcosm. He wrote the following, and I have updated one of the words to be a little more modern and less hurtful. Humanity was called the microcosmos by the ancients, and surely the term was well chosen, for just as humanity is composed of earth, water, air, and fire, so is the body of the earth. As humans have bones as support and framework for flesh, so the earth has rocks as support for the soil. As humans carry a lake of blood in which the lungs inflate and deflate in respiration, so the body of the earth has the ocean, which waxes and wanes every 6 hours in a cosmic respiration. As the veins emanate from the lake of blood and are ramified throughout the human body, in the same way, the ocean fills the body of the earth with an infinity of veins of water. Leonardo saw the interconnectedness of all things, and even foreshadowed physicist David Bohm's theory of the holographic universe by 500 years. A theory which posits that the genetic code of the universe is held in every atom, just as a strand of DNA holds the entire genetic code for every individual. In 1980, Bohm wrote, "Everything is enfolded into everything." 500 years earlier, Leonardo wrote, "Everything comes from everything, and everything is made out of everything, and everything returns into everything." Bohm's theory isn't the only scientific discovery that Leonardo inspired. The butterfly effect, as part of chaos theory, was simplified by Ray Bradbury. If a butterfly flaps its wings in Tokyo, does it affect the weather in New York? 500 years ago, Leonardo wrote, "The earth is moved from its position by the weight of a tiny bird resting upon it." Leonardo's ability to see the connections among all things, comparing swimmers to birds in flight, how the surface of water resembles the hair on our heads, how mountains are both made and destroyed by the currents of rivers, made him the genius he was. Leonardo also wrote, "Every part is disposed to unite with the whole, that it may thereby escape from its own incompleteness." Let me repeat that. Every part is disposed to unite with the whole, that it may thereby escape from its own incompleteness. This musing of Leonardo's is challenging for a modern context, when we are tempted to prioritize the needs of the individuals over the needs of community. When we want to be seen as unique contributors of the world, not blending into a group. This paradox is one of many I mentioned in our week 4 of our series, and yet it's one that returns as we discuss the interconnectedness of all things. How do we distinguish ourselves as individuals and yet live into our 7th principle, into the interconnectedness of all things? One way we do this is to connect with nature, especially as the weather warms again and we can spend time outside. We can connect with nature by watching the animals, planting flowers, and taking walks in the forest. Being in nature as observers puts us into the mindset of Leonardo as we use our senses to explore the world around us. Another way is to harmonize on our connection to each other as human beings. We know the importance of caring for the plants and how a diverse flower bed or vegetable garden highlights the beauty of nature and helps the most wildlife. We know the importance of loving the animals of the world, the bees who pollinate and help grow our food, the animals who give us comfort and companionship, the wildlife that reveal the diversity of nature. This past year, we've been made more aware of what it means to connect to each other as human beings, to see the interconnectedness in all of us, and how our systems can be both helpful and systems of harm. Recently, we introduced our kiddos to the 1970s cartoon movie of Robin Hood. And I was amused every time it mentioned that King Richard was off at the Crusades. As a child and into adulthood, a bit further than I'd like to admit, I assumed that the Christians won the Crusades, after the way it was discussed around me. And even in the movie Robin Hood, when he returns from the Crusades, and it seems like such a victorious win. My childhood church spoke of being a warrior or soldier for Jesus, putting on the armor of God and defeating the devil. We were taught how heroic it was to go on crusades. My middle school's mascot was the Crusaders. I remember the moment in my theological studies that I learned the Christians horribly lost the Crusades. It was all perspective, and I didn't understand because I didn't know the other side of the story. One of the ways that we connect to each other and empathize better with each other is to realize that history does not belong to one group. Our understanding of the past is severely limited when we only know one part of the story. Our American quilt has many beautiful designs and also holes and patches and parts that are downright ugly. Black History Month, the month of February, is so important to understand more parts of the story. And we should study Black history year-round, as we are all interconnected. We need to actively search out Black authors and Black stories and the Black perspective all the time so that we fully understand our history and our present. We need to read Latinx history and LGBTQ history and Asian history and so many others to see more sides of the story, to ensure our minds are actively considering other points of view, other stories, and the interconnectedness of all people. What were you doing around 3 p.m. on Thursday, February 18th? My guess is, at some point near that time, you were looking at a phone or a TV screen or your computer, watching Perseverance land on Mars. It was a historic moment for all of us. And even if you've missed it, you've likely seen it since in your news feed or elsewhere, and the audio and video that has come back every day since. And in that moment of staring at our phones, we were interconnected as people all around the country watched that robot land. That thrill of doing something together, of achieving a common goal, of succeeding at a monumentally difficult task, we were all a part of that. That's the feeling that connects us at our belly buttons to one another. That heartache we should feel when an innocent person is killed or a friend's spouse dies from COVID. That joy we feel when someone else's kid has a win. That elation when justice has rolled down like mighty waters. We are all interconnected. And Leonardo da Vinci, the maestro, understood that. May we also. May you be held in the heart of community until we are joyfully reunited in person. To conclude our series on the spiritual practices of Leonardo da Vinci, I share with you one last surprise. You may realize already that the Last Supper contains geometry and a secret truth about the life of Jesus that isn't so secret anymore. It was recently discovered that the Last Supper also contains a composition written by the maestro himself, hidden in something all of the disciples are doing differently. I invite you to meditate on this composition written by Da Vinci himself. Enjoy.
Please join us in our closing hymn. Love our earth. Take action to consume less, use less energy, respect water, and be cooperative, collaborative, and creative community. Like the moss and the mushrooms, our children's lives depend on it.